Huge avalanche buries skiers alive. Avalanche hits Stubai Glacier resort. Multiple skiers buried as massive search operation intensifies. A major emergency response is underway at one of Austria's largest and most popular ski destinations after a powerful avalanche swept through an off-piste zone on the Stubai Glacier, burying multiple skiers and injuring several others. Now let's go deeper and see what's really happening in this story.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a really significant event from this past season. We're talking about that massive snowslide on Austria's Stubai Glacier.
It was a huge one, and the reports coming out of it are, well, they paint a very detailed picture.
They really do. And, you know, when you first see the headlines, you get the basics, but that's not what we're here for. Our mission today is to give you that shortcut to being properly informed. We need to get past just the numbers and look at three key things.
First, the physics of it, how 2 feet of fresh snow becomes, a weapon.
Exactly. Then the sheer scale of the rescue. I mean, we're talking about a 250-person international mission in some of the toughest terrain imaginable.
And the third piece, which for me is the most chilling, is the timing. How a critical safety warning system just wasn't there when it was needed most.
It's a true case study. A catastrophic slide, skiers buried, and this incredible race against the clock. It's all there.
It is. And it's not just some random act of nature. The sources show us the mountain was structurally primed for failure.
Okay, let's start there. Let's unpack the basics, the geography, the sequence. Where and when did this happen?
So this all went down on the Stubai Glacier. It's a huge, well-known ski area, maybe 50 minutes south of Innsbruck in Austria.
Right, in the Tyrol region.
Exactly. And the slide itself happened on a Thursday morning, pretty early, around 9:30 a.m.
And where on the mountain did it start?
It kicked off high up near the Donchart Pass. And you have to understand the geography here. This is a key detail. The Donchart is strictly off-piste.
So, backcountry. Unmarked, unpatrolled.
Completely. It's the kind of terrain where you're on your own. You need the gear, the knowledge. You're outside the resort's safety net.
So it starts as a backcountry disaster, but it was so big that it didn't stay there? Is that what happened?
That's precisely it. The authorities confirmed this wall of snow just had so much power that it kept going. It swept down and actually hit a lower section of the main Piste 9.
Wow. The actual marked run.
The marked run.
Yeah.
They had to close that section immediately, which just goes to show you the volume of snow that was released. This wasn't a minor slough.
And we know it was skiers in that off-piste area who unintentionally set it off. What about the immediate human cost?
The initial count was at least 9 people partially or fully buried. So the rescue mobilization was immediate. But even before the big teams got there, you had people on the scene trying to dig each other out. 3 of those 9 were injured badly enough to need airlifting to a hospital.
Just terrifying chaos. But there's this one small technical detail in the sources that seems to have made all the difference. It probably stopped this from being a mass fatality event.
Oh, absolutely. The avalanche airbags. Witnesses saw several of them deploy as the slide hit.
And for anyone who doesn't know, explain what those do.
Sure. It's basically a big balloon integrated into a backpack. You pull a handle, it inflates instantly, and that extra volume helps you stay on or near the surface of the snow. It fights that tendency for a dense object, like a person, to sink right to the bottom.
A literal lifesaver. So that personal prep was key. It brings us right to the heart of it, to section 2. The environment. Why was this mountain at this exact moment a ticking time bomb? What was going on in the snowpack?
The sources are really clear on this. It was all about the weather leading up to the event. For several days, they'd had really heavy snow and, crucially, very strong winds. And that dumped a huge amount of fresh snow, over 2 feet of it, onto the glacier in a really short time.
Now, 2 feet of powder sounds amazing to a skier, but you're saying that's where the danger was. We need the physics here. Why is that rapid, wind-driven snowfall so bad?
Well, the problem isn't the new snow itself. It's the layers underneath it.
Okay.
When you dump that much weight on top of an old snowpack, that old snow has already changed. It's often crystallized into these weak, sugary grains. We call them facets. Or sometimes you have these delicate ice crystals like buried frost called surface hoar.
So it's like building on a weak foundation.
It's like putting a huge, heavy slab on a layer of ball bearings or, granulated sugar. The bond between the layers is incredibly fragile. So when a group of skiers adds just a little more stress, snap. The whole slab above it just lets go. That's a slab avalanche.
That makes the risk feel so immediate. And when you connect that that terrifying physics
Right.
to the institutional response, you get to what is frankly the most chilling part of this whole thing, the timing of the warnings.
This is where it gets really systemic. You have these peak volatile conditions, right? The fresh snow, the wind, the weak layers. But what was the official alert system doing?
It was off, basically on hold.
Exactly. One of the sources pointed this out, this incredible warning gap. The official Regional Avalanche Warning Service, the government body that issues the high-level alerts. They were scheduled to start their full seasonal operations the very next day.
You're kidding me. One day later.
One day. The avalanche happened in that tiny window where the risk was critical, but the highest level of official warning hadn't been switched back on for the season yet.
That's unbelievable. The difference between a close call and a disaster came down to a 24-hour scheduling window. Did the sources give any reason why that gap existed? I mean, is it just a calendar date thing, even if the conditions are obviously getting dangerous?
And that's the question, isn't it? The sources base it, but don't explicitly answer. It really points to this reliance on, preset schedules instead of dynamic real-time risk assessment. Now, an expert skier should be reading the mountain regardless. But for most people, that official warning is the big red light. It's the signal to stay on the groomed runs.
Or stay home.
Or stay home. And without that highest level government caution in place, the decision to go off-piste near the Dawnshire Pass was made in, an information vacuum.
Okay, so we've got the environmental trigger and this massive institutional gap. It sets the stage for a disaster. So the next logical question is, how do you even start to respond to that? Let's talk about the rescue operation, Section 3. The scale of it was just staggering.
It had to be. When you have multiple burials at high altitude, you're fighting the clock. There's no time to waste. The authorities launched this immense effort, mobilizing something like 250 personnel. It was a total all-hands-on-deck response that went way beyond just the local teams.
250 people. That's an astronomical number for one rescue. What kind of teams are we talking about here? How do you even manage that many people in a place like that?
You see every level of specialists called in. You've got the local mountain rescue from Newstift, specialized police units, volunteers, and, of course, the search dogs. They're just irreplaceable for finding people under deep snow. Then they brought in more expert teams from nearby Solden just to have fresh bodies and gear.
But 250 people, that has to be a logistical nightmare. I saw in the sources this wasn't just an Austrian operation either. There was international help. I mean, how efficient is that, really? Sometimes bringing in foreign teams can actually slow things down. Jurisdiction, language issues. Did the sources mention any of that?
That's a very sharp point. And yes, the sources confirm the complexity. The aid was necessary, but it wasn't simple. You had German soldiers and Polish mountain rescue teams coming in to help.
Yeah.
The challenge is always unified command. You're trying to integrate teams who operate under totally different protocols.
Different radios, different training.
All of it. The real difficulty isn't just getting boots on the ground, it's managing the logistics. It's coordinating gear, making sure the rescuers themselves are safe from secondary slides, managing fatigue, and keeping everyone talking to each other in that critical first hour. It's a huge undertaking.
And you can't do any of that without air support.
No way. The ground teams can only move so fast.
Yeah.
So the operation was heavily reliant on aviation. They had 2 medical helicopters on site just for getting the 3 injured skiers out of there fast. And a police chopper was doing aerial surveillance, guiding the ground teams, making sure the entire search area was covered. Helicopters are the only way to shrink the timeline in that terrain.
Okay, that paints a very clear picture of the crisis response. So for our last section, let's zoom out a bit. Let's look at Stubai Glacier itself, the broader context. This is Austria's biggest glacial resort. That suggests a lot of people and maybe a certain culture of risk-taking.
And that context is vital. Stubai is a massive operation. The runs go up to nearly 10,500 feet. It had also just reopened for the new season, so, the excitement level and the number of people were high. It's an environment that demands respect.
But the sources mentioned another serious accident that happened before the avalanche. How does that earlier event, which wasn't an avalanche, connect to this?
That's where you see the link between managing natural hazards and just basic personal responsibility. Earlier that month, a 20-year-old Belgian skier was seriously injured. And the key here is that he veered off a marked run, the number 7 slope, and crashed into snow-covered rocks.
So you have two different things going on. On one hand, you have expert skiers pushing the limits in the backcountry, triggering the avalanche.
Wow.
And on the other, you've got a serious injury from a simple lapse on a marked trail.
Precisely. And the details on the Belgian skier are really telling. He wasn't wearing a helmet. He had major head and body injuries, and another skier who happened to be passing by had to coordinate his rescue. So it puts the severity of these accidents into perspective, even when you're supposed to be in a safe area.
When you put those two incidents together, the huge natural event off-piste and the serious injury from personal neglect on-piste, it does suggest a wider problem, maybe a kind of cultural complacency about the dangers up there.
It really does. It seems to show a disconnect with the inherent risks of a high-altitude environment, whether those risks come from the mountain itself or from your own choices.
This makes me wonder about liability. In Austria, if you go off-piste, the risk is all on you. But the fact that this avalanche hit Piste 9, a marked run, does that shift any liability back to the resort, especially with that warning system gap we talked about?
That is the deeper legal question, isn't it? Usually the resorts are well protected if the incident is clearly off-piste. But the moment it encroaches on the managed safe area, the conversation changes. The authorities' official line right after the slide was to urge everyone to stay strictly within the marked areas. That's their defense, reiterating the boundaries. But that question about the warning systems not being active, that remains a point of systemic scrutiny.
This has been an incredibly thorough deep dive. So to summarize for everyone listening, we learned a disaster was fueled by the specific volatile physics of fresh snow on top of weak crystallized layers. And this was made so much worse by that institutional timing gap where the danger outpaced the official alerts.
Right, and we saw that the response required this staggering operational feat.
Right.
A 250-person mobilization, complex cross-border cooperation, everything from search dogs to military units. And of course, the personal preparedness of the victims, those airbags, was absolutely vital in preventing a worse outcome.
So the deep dive really reveals how these extreme risk environments combine volatile nature with operational logistics. And it's all underscored by personal risk tolerance.
Exactly. But here's the final thought I want to leave you with. This whole thing really emphasizes the need for preparedness across the board. So given Stubai's altitude, we're talking nearly 10,500 feet, and this recent history of accidents both on and off-piste, what does this tell you about the absolute necessity of dynamic institutional preparedness? If your safety systems, your warning services, can't react faster than a 24-hour schedule and conditions change so violently, how can you really trust the idea of a safe resort environment? It's a powerful reminder that sometimes waiting for the official alert might just be too late.
Okay, one question for you. What caused the avalanche at the Stubai Glacier, and were there any warning signs before it occurred? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.